Hey, welcome to the Razzle Dazzle Show, a podcast where we talk about our favorite video games and all things pop culture with an emphasis on our favorites. I'm your host, Jared, and our guest today is Kari Wahlgren. Kari was first introduced to anime audiences as the voice of Haruko in FLCL. Since then, she has voiced hundreds of characters in anime, animation, and video games. Her anime roles include Saber in Fate Zero and Fate Stay Night, Fu in Samurai Champloo, DIL in Sword Art Online, Anemone in Eureka 7, Tayuya in Naruto, and Kagami in Lucky Star. She played the voice of Jessica, Rick's spaceship, and Diane in Rick and Morty, Zatanna in DC Superhero Girls, Starfire in the DC Teen Titans movies, Tigress in Kung Fu Panda Legends of Awesomeness, Charmcaster in Ben 10, Chelsea in Fishhooks, Anka in Archer, Emma Frost in Wolverine and the X-Men, and Saturn Girl and Phantom Girl in Young Justice. Her video game roles include Kitana and Melina in Mortal Kombat 11 and 1, Harley Quinn in Gotham Knights, Arania in Final Fantasy 15, Ash in Final Fantasy 12, Starfire in Injustice 2, and Rain in Tales of Symphonia. Please let us know what you think about this episode somewhere on the internet, and be sure to follow us on Instagram at Razzle Dazzle Show, on TikTok at Razzle_Dazzle_Show, on Blue Sky at Raz-Show Pod, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Raz_Daz_Pod. And with all that being said,
it's Razzle Dazzle time! This is Kari Wahlgren. I do voices for a living. Blah. Yeah, something like that.
hello, Kari. Thank you so much for being on the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on. This is an honor, and I cannot stress that enough. I'm gonna do my best to keep my fanboyingness in check, but if it comes through, it comes through. Don't even worry about it. A quick Kickstarter question before we get into it. How are Ruby, Jackson, and Juju?
I love that you know that. Those are my three kitties. And they're doing great, although Jackson is a little bit stressed out right now because there's some construction getting done inside the house, so it's very noisy.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, he's just needing a little extra TLC right now.
I gotcha. Yeah, I wanted to bring it up because I know one of them is a black cat. And I have a black cat of my own. His name is Coke. We got him like that.
Oh, my gosh.
His litter were all named after different types of soda. So there's Coke, there's Pepsi, there's a Fanta, a Mountain Dew. I'm not kidding. So we got Coke. I also bring
I may have to name my next cat Mr. Pibb. Because that would be a baller name for a cat. Yeah.
Get some chains, some cat appropriate chains.
Mr. Pibb. They call him Mr. Pibb. Anyway, so go on. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're okay. I love it. I also bring this up because in my research, looking you up, I've come to understand that Batman the Animated Series played a big role in your life. Mm-hmm. I just sent you an email with an image that I think you will very much appreciate.
Oh. Oh. I am the knight. That is so glorious.
So I am also a giant fan of Batman the Animated Series, and getting a black cat, it's almost perfect. Right, perfect. I got him that Batman costume. Me and my partner and I had to kind of give him as many treats as possible to get him to pose the way we want him to, and his face is very right?
Yeah, he still looks slightly annoyed.
Yeah, that's mid crunch of a treat.
Oh my gosh. This is a beautiful baby, you guys. This is a beautiful black cat here. What a good boy.
He is our Batman, and yeah, I really wanted to take that opportunity to show you that.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yes, you could not have shown this to someone who would appreciate it more, so.
I love it. Yes. All right, already off to a good start. So, okay, let's start at the beginning. Can you tell us, where did you grow up, and how would you describe the musical background of your childhood?
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I grew up in a really tiny town in central Kansas, Hoisington, Kansas. And I listened to a lot of musical theater. I listened to, my parents had an extensive record collection. So I was listening to everything from Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton to classical music and jazz and, Johnny Mathis and just all sorts of different things. And then my older siblings were listening to hairband music. And so I was secretly listening through the door to Poison and Bon Jovi and Slaughter and things like that when my siblings were listening to it. So I listened to a lot of different things.
Yeah, I love that. What was the first band and musician that really got your attention when you were young?
Oh, man. I mean, I was such a musical theater kid.
Yeah.
So that was a big influence on me before I actually started getting into like bands and things like that. But I will say that New Kids on the Block was the first concert that I went to.
Wow.
So I was into the New Kids. And you know, unapologetically so. I saw them twice in concert.
Oh yeah,
and now they're on the reunion tour or whatever. So
yeah. So your parents were very much vinyl record collectors. Do you remember the first physical music you've owned that was yours?
Cassette tapes were still a thing when I was a kid. So I remember getting the Jets on cassette tape for one of my birthdays. Man, I'm really throwing it back here. Yeah. So Amy Grant, I think Amy Grant was one of the first things I had on maybe cassette tape. Vanilla Ice. I think Vanilla Ice was probably in the first 5 cassette tapes that I owned. So Ice Ice Baby.
Yeah. Go Ninja, go Ninja, go.
Yes.
So this next question requires a bit of context, right? So here we go. I work at WGCU Public Media. It's a NPR PBS radio station in Southwest Florida. I'm a producer and audio engineer for it. And we have this other show called 3 Song Stories where we tell people's biography through music. So the guest comes in, they all pick 3 songs that every time they listen to these songs, they immediately get transported back in time to a time and place that they have a strong story associated with. I want to ask you off the top of your head, do you have a song story?
Okay. Love Walks In by Van Halen takes me back to a very specific moment in time. And that was on a record. And we were going to sing it in school. And I remember just being blown away and just turning up the record player as loud as it would go in my house and just feeling chills and just being like, wow, this is amazing. So yeah, I have a really strong memory of that. And then the Phantom of the Opera from the musical Phantom of the Opera was a very pivotal song for me at a moment in time in my life. It really solidified a certain musical theater apex in my young life and just wanting to sing and do more musicals and things like that. And then, let me think, Fly to the Angels by Slaughter.
When I went and
saw them in 2016. And that sparked a whole nother renaissance of my life with doing certain things with music and some directions that my life took. Yeah, I guess those are the 3 that just immediately come to mind. I'll probably think back later and say, oh, why didn't I say this song or this song? But being put on the spot, those are 3 that click me back into a very, very specific moment in time.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for doing 3. I only asked for 1, but you went the extra mile. I love it. I was gonna bring it up a little bit later, but Slaughter, you have your own album with the same title and with I'm sure similar songs like Fly to the Angels.
Yeah. When I saw that concert back in 2016, I was really I had heard Slaughter songs when I was a kid because my older siblings were listening to it, but I wasn't really encouraged to listen to that music because I was a little too young. Definitely couldn't watch MTV or anything like that. So it was kind of the forbidden music. And when I saw them at this festival in 2016, it just kind of really captured my imagination. And so I started listening to Slaughter music and just really falling in love with it. And so I had started this female tribute band called Slaughter. And we would do Slaughter songs in all different genres of music. So we had a jazz version of one of their songs and an R&B version of one of their songs and a classical version, all of these things. So yeah, we actually have one album out. and we're finishing up the second album. And the fun thing about that project is that I was able to just really highlight a lot of different female musicians and vocalists and things like that. So producing the project was almost as much fun, if not more fun, than performing on some of the tracks. So yeah, very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. How does that song, Fly to the Angels, let's talk about that real quick. How does that song fit into your life today?
Oh man, well, I think it's a very timeless song because it talks about loving someone and losing them. And, you know, it was written for someone that the guys knew that died. And over the years, a lot of people have embraced it for, you know, people that have either passed away or been lost to suicide. So it's a very powerful song and very heartfelt and comforting. So I would just say it's a timeless song.
Understood. For the past, 2 weeks, I think I've been listening to all your albums that's on Spotify exclusively. So yeah, I at least wanted to bring attention to it and talk about it at least for a bit.
Thank you. I'm so honored.
No, of course you do an amazing job. You have an amazing voice, not only in acting but of course singing.
Thank you. It's definitely a passion of mine that I am trying to do a little bit more of in recent years.
Yeah, and you're doing phenomenal. So I just want to give credit to where credit's due.
Thank you.
So now let's shift gears into your career a little bit. So we've already established musical theater, right? Where is the transition to voice acting? What initially drew you to it?
You know, I was just such a huge fan of cartoons and comic books when I was a kid. And, you know, I watched a lot of Disney things like every other kid. And apparently I told my parents when I was 5, one day I'm going to be the voice of a Disney princess. And, they kind of were like, oh, well, okay. I don't know if that's really a job, but it's funny because it was on my radar that early that somebody was doing the voices in the cartoons. And so voiceover has always been something that I've wanted to do as part of my career. And I was recording my voice on cassette tapes and trying out different voices and doing as much theater and music as I can. And it just sort of all came together, I guess. You know, I was on a tour of a company that did radio dramas on my 11th birthday. And they were auditioning for a kid my age. And so they actually asked my parents, would your daughter like to audition for this role? And I said, yes. And that was actually how I got my first professional voiceover job, as I got cast right there on the spot. And, and after that, I was doing radio commercials and things like that, and just kind of had voiceover as part of my life ever since then.
That's really interesting. I've noticed a pattern with a lot of voice actors, legends like yourself, that has either or, and I think you're the an upbringing in musical theater or theater of any kind, and then getting into radio promos and those types of voiceovers. Before we started recording, we were talking about David Kaye a little bit. He was, that's also a prime example. He started in radio and then eventually just by accident, he landed himself in the voiceover world. And that's crazy how that's like a good pattern to notice with so many great people.
It is crazy. I mean, most people I know have either come at it from some sort of theater or music background or from the radio side of things. So, yeah, it lends itself well to voiceover.
And of course, you first made waves as Haruko in FLCL, which is a character that has, such an intense, unique type of energy. And of course, in a unique and intense kind of show. How did you approach this role, and what were your early impressions of this character? Or did you even get any early impressions, if you could?
Oh, man. With Haruko, I just went to an open audition. And then they had a call back, and they sent me home and said, watch this video and just see if you can kind of capture the tone of the character. It will all be in Japanese, so you won't really know what's going on, but just see if you can get the tone and the sound and the vibe of the character. So when I booked Haruko, I had never dubbed before, and I had watched a little bit of anime, but I wasn't really a huge, knowledgeable anime follower. So it was kind of like being thrown into the deep end of a pool and having to figure out how to swim. So the great thing about that project is that they took a lot of time with it. I didn't realize it then, but it was only 6 episodes long. And a lot of times with anime, you're just moving so fast. You're under a time crunch. And so you may record 6 episodes in one session. But with that one, they took months, if I remember correctly, to really make sure that the dub was done well. And they had the clients from Japan actually come over and really sign off and work with the English team to make sure that everything was really copacetic and just translating in a good way. So that was a real gift. And Haruka was such a crazy, crazy character. I didn't realize at the time. Everything felt hard. It felt difficult. But I didn't realize how crazy and multi-layered and difficult that character was until many years later. So I just really relied on, first of all, listening to the original Japanese. I was very much trying to honor what was in there originally. And then the English directors and the clients and the people from Japan, it really felt like a team effort to do it justice.
And that also, I'm sure, opened up many doors to many more projects, or at least, in animation or or video games, right? I do want to take this time and just note that is, one of your first, and it just blew up into a big web of so many different products or projects, right? Like, looking through your discography, you have been, and I'm sure you get this a lot, you have been a major part, or you have always been there with me throughout my life. There's almost always something that I've watched within the past year or even the past week. You've been in it. As of recording a few weeks ago, it was Batman Day. And, of course, I was prepping for your episode, and I just found out that you played Harley Quinn in Gotham Knights. And that's one of the games I've bought in my backlog and I haven't played yet. Of course, I played through the Arkham games, but I haven't played this one. So on Batman Day, I decided, you know what? What better time to start this game than on Batman Day and when I'm about to speak to this amazing person? So I did, and I just beeline towards all the Harley Quinn side missions and stuff, and you did phenomenal as Harley. It was awesome. But not only that, you were there with me as a kid growing up as Charmcaster in one of my favorite shows ever, Ben 10. And you've stuck with that character up until Omniverse, which is incredible. And not even me, my partner, she's watched all the Tinkerbell movies and of course The Little Mermaid. She loves The Little Mermaid, and you were right there with her. You were right there with me and hundreds upon thousands of other people. So I do want to take this time and thank you.
No, you're listing all these things that I just have loved so much. And it's funny because so many of these things were part of my childhood. So getting to be a part of them in my career has been a dream come true, because Batman the Animated Series was a huge influence on me. It was one of the things that really made me focus on, I want to be a voice actor. This is what I want to do as a career. I want to work towards that. It was very inspiring. So, getting to work on anything in the Batman universe and getting to do an episode of Caped Crusader, the new one that just came out from the same team, was huge. So all of that taps into my inner child. And, The Little Mermaid, again, was such a huge thing that I waited for when I was a kid. Waiting for that movie to come out was a huge deal. So then when they did Little Mermaid 3, Ariel's Beginning, getting cast as one of her older sisters, Atina, and then getting to go to the blue carpet premiere and seeing Jodie Benson there. And, those are the things that you just kind of come full circle in a way, and you think, oh my gosh, this is my life. Whoa. My inner child has had a few moments like that made me very, very happy.
And you've kind of achieved that dream of becoming a Disney princess. Technically, she is a princess.
Yes. That's so funny that you say that, because for a couple of people, I've been like, well, technically,
yeah,
Ariel's older sister would be considered a princess.
Yep.
But she does have a doll. She's got at least one
does.
doll out there that I used to have in my collection somewhere. I think she's in a little box. But and there's a Halloween costume of her, so I figure that's legit.
Yeah, you've made it.
I've made it. I've officially made it.
And I also want to highlight a special character you've done that I've only fallen in love with recently. So, and as recent as in like the past year or two, my boss, who's we have a great relationship with one another. He has shown me Cowboy Bebop, which is an amazing show, all in its own right, and of course, Samurai Champloo, which is like those two animes like putting Pokemon to the side because that's always number one, doesn't count. Those two shows are my favorite animes of all time. And it's just, I've never watched anything like these shows before, especially Champloo. It's unique. It is a breath of fresh air in terms of like all the other shows I've watched. And it's just a really great story with a phenomenal soundtrack, as we all know.
Oh, so good.
And
so good.
Yeah, and you got to play as the starring role as Fu. Fu, in her own right, she brings a lot of depth to the series. The whole show wouldn't happen without her, really. She blends humor and vulnerability. How did you approach capturing, the spirit of this character, given the show's unique fusion of samurai hip hop culture?
Man, I've got the biggest smile on my face over here. Samurai Champloo is probably one of my top 3 favorite anime characters I've ever played. And yeah, she just had this, she was sweet. She had this sweetness about her. Yeah. She had a goofy side, a huge goofy side. I loved that she would constantly overeat. And so I still will do my little Fu voice whenever I've eaten too much. I'm like, ha, 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 So I feel like there were certain parts of her that just were very natural to tap into. And I always, unless I'm very specifically told otherwise, I always try to honor the original Japanese. So when we listen to the original Japanese, capturing the spirit and the essence of what the original actress did is always something that I keep on my radar. And, with Kirk Thornton and Steve Bloom playing the other 2 main leads, whenever they would record before me, I would get to hear them in my headphones. And, what a gift that is as an actor to get to play off of those guys. It's funny, it's the 20-year anniversary this year of that show.
Really? Oh, man, I didn't even notice.
So I've been kind of really pushing for a reunion with the 2 guys. So
maybe you'll...
fingers crossed.
I think this bid has already been made, but maybe you'll finally meet Steve.
You know what? Steve and I are now actually very good friends. Yeah. But we never met until... years after Samurai Champloo. Yeah, it was an ongoing joke for a very long time.
It's a good bit.
That Steve did not exist and that it was all made up because we worked on so many things together, but we never met in person. And we would see each other on the sign-in sheet, but we never met. So, but now... I feel very fortunate to call him a very good friend. But yes, Samurai Champloo, for anybody out there that hasn't checked it out, I really recommend it because it was a very groundbreaking mix of anime and hip-hop music and breakdancing. And there was such a culture mixture that was not seen, I think, before that show and was beautifully done in that show. So, I loved it. I could talk about that show for hours.
Me too. We've done an episode on both Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo years ago, and that's almost 2 hours long. And it would have gotten longer if we weren't tied to a time restriction to the studio we were using back then.
Nice.
So yeah. To continue.
It's time for another one. It's time for another one because now that the 20th year anniversary has popped up, it's a great excuse to revisit that.
100%. It's you cannot talk about everything that these shows, especially Champloo, has to offer in only 2 hours minus.
Oh man.
So yeah.
I need to go back and just rewatch it because it's a good one.
I rewatched it in prep for you, so I'm primed.
You're welcome. All in the name of quote unquote research.
Exactly. That's what I get to call research now, it's great.
Same over here. Anytime I get cast as something that's in the superhero genre or something that I'm not completely familiar with, I'm like, oh, well, I've got to do research. So let me go find all the graphic novels I can of that and brush up.
Yeah.
Anyway.
One more question about Champloo, about Fu. Her journey is often one of trying to balance strength and vulnerability, like I mentioned. What parts of her character resonated most with you, and do you see any bits of yourself in her, or vice versa?
Very much so. I think for a lot of women, there is a juggle between being strong and needing to take care of oneself and feeling vulnerable and, working through whatever relationships or issues that are going on in your life. And so I think Fu really struggles with that. And she's not only trying to find this samurai who smells of sunflowers on her own personal journey, but she's playing peacemaker with these two very different men who are on this journey with her and, trying to get them not to kill each other. And so I was the youngest of 5 kids, so playing peacemaker, definitely I had moments of that really resonating with me, and having older brothers for sure. I think there were a lot of things about her that, and just the fact that she's really goofy.
Yeah.
And she's not slick. She trips over her own feet all the time. She doesn't always say the right thing. All of that resonates with me.
Yeah.
For sure.
Love it. Well, it's now time to enter the speed round, where I'm going to ask you a bunch of silly random questions, and we're going to see how you do. Are you ready?
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. Okay.
All right. If you were the final boss in a video game, what would your title be?
Lady Rage.
Ooh. Okay. What would your boss theme music be? You can choose any song from anywhere.
That's a hard one. Maybe, it would be something by Slaughter. I'm just having trouble picking one.
Cool. Something by Slaughter. If you were a superhero, what would your name be?
Oh.
And what powers would you have?
Oh man, this is a hard one. Okay, well.
It's hard because you've also played a lot of superheroes.
Cree Summer, who I just adore, calls me Princess Furious. So maybe Princess Furious.
I love this so much.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that should have been my big boss name, but I'm just going to go with that. So Princess Furious would be my superhero name. And maybe, she'd kind of be like one of the Green Lanterns, but a pink lantern. And so she would the angrier and stuff she would get, she would just shoot pink energy out of her hands. And she just would look really pretty, and she'd have this really great pink costume, but she'd be she would just annihilate people.
Awesome. I love it. If you can live in the world of your favorite childhood show or movie, which one would it be and why?
Oh, man. Maybe She-Ra, Princess of Power.
Damn, that's good.
Because, man, Swiftwing, hopping on Swiftwing and flying. Some of you guys out there might be too young. You need to do a deep dive into She-Ra if you...
She-Ra's a great show.
Yeah.
And the new one from DreamWorks? God, that's good too.
Right? I mean, I grew up on the old school show and the toys.
Yeah.
And so I had like the lagoon where they all hung out. I mean, everything was just pretty in that world. And there was like cool female, badass fighters, but camaraderie and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that one.
Understood. Which character from your childhood favorite show or movie would you most like to have as a friend in real life?
Oh, man. These are great questions.
I remember in an interview you've done already, you've mentioned that something you look forward to is coming across questions that people haven't asked you or are like...
Yes!
Yeah. So I'm doing it.
Few of them. You're doing it. You're going to have to edit out my thinking here because I'm like seriously thinking about my answers. Okay. I'm going to say Wonder Woman. I'm just going to say Wonder Woman just because I loved everything Wonder Woman when I was little. And she seems like she'd be a good friend to have.
For sure.
And she'd be very honest with you.
Yeah. You can't lie.
Yeah.
She has the lasso.
But I'm going to be thinking about that, and I reserve the right to come back to it if I think of another answer.
No problem.
Okay.
If you could attend any fictional event, for example, the Ewok celebration in Return of the Jedi, Which one would it be and why?
I think I'm going to have to go with the Sorting Hat ceremony in Harry Potter because I've read all the books at least twice, but there's something magical about seeing people get sorted.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just want to experience that great dining hall one time and the Sorting Hat.
Yeah, understood. Okay. What would your 14-year-old self think of who you are today?
I think she would mostly be pretty stoked because a lot of things that I was dreaming about at 14 have happened. Mm-hmm. So things that, at that age were just kind of dreams in the back of my mind have actually come to pass. So, yeah, but it's interesting because I'm kind of thinking to myself now, all right, if I think back to my 14-year-old self, what are some things that I can take from this point on in my life to kind of incorporate? Like, what are some things that I hadn't done back then that I was really wanting to do? Or what were some characteristics that I want to recapture from my 14-year-old self? So that never stops. It never stops.
Well, it is now time for you to recommend 3 people that when your episode comes out, you'll share this with, and that you think they'll be a good guest on the show, that you think they'll say yes, and that you're going to help me get them on the show.
Absolutely. Courtney Taylor, if you haven't had her, she was the main survivor in Fallout 4, the main female survivor. She has done a ton of video games. Like, if you just go down the rabbit hole, she's been in so many video games, and she was also KO on OKKO, Let's Be Heroes on Cartoon Network. JP Karliak, he's a friend of mine, and he is in the new X-Men cartoon.
Oh, 97?
Yeah.
Nice.
So he's in X-Men 97. He also was the Boss Baby in the Boss Baby cartoon series. Not the movies, but in all of the TV series, he was the Boss Baby. And also he's just been such an advocate. He created something called Queer Vox. So anyone who identifies as, being part of the queer community, it's specific voiceover training to help them, audition and create characters and things like that, because there is so much more diversity now in voiceover. But you want to be prepared for those opportunities. And those are distinct challenges for that community that JP really taps into. So he's just doing amazing things with that. Yeah, I have mad respect for him.
Yeah.
And, Mary Elizabeth McGlenn, if you haven't interviewed her yet, she's Steve Bloom's wife and was voice acting with him and voice directing him from the very beginning, and Ghost in the Shell and 1,000 other things. I'm tripping over myself to give her credits, and she was the director of the She-Ra animated series that came out from DreamWorks. So yeah, I think all 3 of them would be amazing guests.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, and yeah, we'll do what we can to get them on the show. Do you have any final thoughts?
I really like connecting with people on social media, so, feel free to follow me. I'm at Kari Wahlgren on Instagram, which is where I have the most fun, and Facebook Official, I've got a page. TikTok, I've got a page. So, yeah, just follow me, and there's some exciting stuff coming up that I can't talk about yet, but I'm going to be able to talk about in the next few months, so I would love to connect with folks on social media.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll be sure to plug everything and have links in all that stuff in the description down below, so you don't have to worry about it. Thank you so much, Kari, for taking the time being here. Like, really, even though it was kind of speedy, but I appreciate all the time that you gave me. And it's a dream come true. I'm still like in shock that like I'm talking to you right now. It's mind-blowing.
Sweetheart.
Thank you so much.
I cannot tell you how fun so many of your questions were.
Yes.
I honestly, like, if I made a top 10 of most original fun questions I've been asked in interviews, you might have hit about 5. 4 or 5 of the top 10. So well done.
That's like the best thing you can say to a journalist.
Yeah.
And that's only half the script.
And you pronounced my name right.
I did.
Got you major points. So it was such a pleasure. Thank you a million times.
Thank you. Alright, that's all the time we have for today, guys. If you want to hear more from the amazing Kari Wahlgren, please be sure to check out her website at kariwahlgren.com and follow her on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Kari Wahlgren. Links to everything will be in the description down below. Be sure to let us know what you think about this episode somewhere on the internet, and be sure to follow us on Instagram at Razzle Dazzle Show, on TikTok at Razzle_Dazzle_Show, on Blue Sky at RazDaz Show Pod, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Raz_Daz_Pod. Be sure to rate us 5 stars and leave a comment down below. We'll catch you on the next one.
Next time on the Razzle Dazzle Show. That game could put you in the world. That's what I love about this game.
Not just the game, but like his performance. Sam Witwer's performance, just like I can feel the tragedy behind his acting as Starkiller. Dude, his voice acting, dude. Oh, the tragedy.
The scream that he gives out when it's him and Palpatine, and they're both shooting lightning at each other, and obviously Palpatine is the stronger Force user, so he's winning, but like he gives him he gives everything he has just to send one last wave so that the rebels can escape. That scream haunts me, dude. Tune in next week.